Christy. Welcome along, everybody. It's great to see you all here. And we're talking about water safety and children. And as Christy mentioned, drowning is still a very big concern for Australia. Here are some statistics for you to have a look at. 31 children aged 0 to 4 years of age drown in the year 2012 to 13 in Australia. Far too many children. Also, the last statistic there, 94% of these cases, there was no supervision. So that's really alarming. A few more stats for you to have a look at here for the 5 to 14-year-old age groups. One thing also in here that you might find really interesting is the 55-year-old age group, where there's 114 drowning deaths experienced. That's quite high. It's actually the highest age group. Can anyone think why that might be? Does anyone have an idea? Oh, they might be a bit more brave and they do some silly things. True. Yeah, definitely some cultural things there. Another reason for this is that in Australia, swimming pools only just started being built after these people were sort of at that age where they could learn to swim. So this age group, unfortunately, didn't have access to swimming lessons. So a lot of these people actually don't know how to swim. So they go out and they want to enjoy this wonderful environment that we have here in Australia, all the aquatic activities that we have to do, fishing and boating and so on. And unfortunately, they can't save themselves if they happen to fall in the water. So today, we're going to be going through a few things. It's all to do with prevention. So prevention is always better than cure, because quite often when it comes to drowning deaths, it's not curable. So that's the unfortunate truth. We're going to be talking about how you can educate adults and children to prevent these things from occurring. The other thing is supervision. We're going to talk quite a little bit about supervision. Making sure that it's competent supervision, that the person who's supervising is not a teenager, that they're sober, that sort of thing. And we're also going to talk to you about attending swimming lessons. All right, one thing to remember is that no child is drown-proof. All right, so it's always really, really important to be vigilant and remember that one. Okay.
Okay, so there's all sorts of different dangerous water. Does anyone have any ideas what sort of water would be dangerous? Any water is dangerous, and water is a very big part of our lives, and we are around it all the time. But there's lots of places that we don't think about that the water is actually dangerous. Yes, swimming pools can be dangerous. Also, fish ponds in your yard. You need to make sure that they are covered, that your children can't get into the fish ponds. Pet water. Some people have a big container for the dogs to be drinking out, or the cats. Making sure that we use smaller ones when your children are outside playing, especially toddlers, making sure that we put it up. Also, buckets. Buckets collect water. We don't think about them. Children only need 20 centimetres of water to actually drown. So it's a very minimal amount of water that you would actually need. Bathtubs. When we actually have the children in bathtubs, that's one of the largest statistics that children actually drown in outside of a swimming pool. We need to make sure we are vigilant when we're there. If you're in with your children in the bath, do not leave them for a second, just to go to answer the phone or things like that. Also, dams, oceans, rivers and lakes. Toilets. It is a really good idea to actually get a lock on your toilet that you actually to take the lid off. Also, and another thing with a lot of more people getting front load washing machines, making sure that there is a child safety lock on those as well. Children think it's a great place to hide in. Oops, sorry.
Okay, so when we talk about supervision, remember I said we were talking about educating not just adults but children as well. It's really important that we do educate our children into knowing what the rules are and being really vigilant on those rules. So things such as only swim with an adult, wait for an adult, and always listen to adults. This is really, really important for children to understand this. Sometimes your children can be more responsible than other adults. So, for instance, if your child's a little bit older, school age, they go to a friend's house for playover who has a pool, that parent's not as vigilant as you are, you want your child to be able to say to that parent, I have to wait for an adult to go in the pool. So you want your child to be responsible as well. All right, let them know the rules. Make sure they know how to play safely around water. Make sure they know there's no running around a pool or around the water hole and so on. And the other really important thing is to make sure that they're comfortable to know that it's okay to go and get help if there is trouble. Sometimes children are too frightened. If something goes wrong, they think they might get in trouble themselves if they go and tell somebody. So it's really important that they are comfortable to go and get another adult if there's any trouble. So it's not just children that need to know about supervision. Adults also need to be educated somewhat in supervising. because no, it doesn't come naturally to everybody. We've got the 4 C's here for supervision. First of all, it's constant. Supervision must be constant and unwavering. It can't be interrupted whatsoever. The other thing is competent. Like I said before, the person who is supervising the children around a water area must be a competent supervising person. They need to be sober, they can't be drinking, and they need to be focused on those children. It also needs to be an adult. All right, it's very unfair to ask a teenager to watch over some small children. All right, they're not yet developed enough to make those really crucial decisions. So it needs to be an adult and they need to be aware. The next one is concentration. Quite often, the scenario that we see is at a family barbecue where there's a backyard pool, we have one person supervising, and they need to be just supervising. They can't be listening into the party jokes or listening into conversation over here. They need to be fully focused on what their role is. Sometimes it's a good idea to wear a hat, have a supervisor's hat, so the person who's in that supervisor's role is wearing the cap, and they can change it for the next person who's coming in. Which leads me into the next one is criteria. It's very, very important that you have a set criteria and everybody knows the rules of that pool. All right? If you have one supervisor who allows the children to do bombies or to dive or to jump on each other or whatever it is, and the next person doesn't allow it, it just makes it really inconsistent for the children. The children need to know what the rules are and everyone needs to stick by them for the whole duration. Does anyone have any comments about that? Does everyone agree? Yep, excellent.
Okay, why swimming lessons? The best prevention for children is learning, or all of us, is to learn how to swim. People that can actually swim can get themselves out of danger. What is our definition of being able to swim? We believe that you are not a competent swimmer until you can swim 400 metres of continuous freestyle. A lot of people believe that if their child can swim from one side of the pool to the other underneath it, they will be safe in the water. This is not so. Also, learning respect of the water, understanding your own capabilities. You may be able to swim a few laps in the swimming pool with a bit of ease, but you wouldn't be able to do the Rottnest swim. So it's understanding what you can actually do with your abilities. Also, understanding your lifelong safety and opportunity. This comes to Di talking before about people over the age of 55 not being able to swim. Also, children at school. Your child may want to go into marine biology or a water activity sport. They want to go away to camps. Some of the criteria is the children need to be able to swim certain distances. If they can't do that, they can't participate in those courses that may alter their lifelong dreams, or also going away and being with their friends at school, being to go on school camps. Also, how do you know which school to attend to? One of them, is finding a reputable school. So ask your friends which school that they go to, why they go there, what do they find good about that. Also, finding out about a well-maintained school. When you go into the school, you want to make sure that the water quality is nice and clear, that they do have pool testing done on their waters. You want to make sure that the chemicals that they use are actually really good. Also, the comfort of the water. All children will learn better in warm water. If you're attending a school where it's cold, children won't learn as well. They're more worried about trying to keep themselves warm in the water. If they're actually warm, they're going to participate a lot more and they can actually concentrate on their classes. You want to make sure that you've got qualified staff. When you ring a school centre, find out what they have, what qualifications do they have. You want to make sure that they have nationally accredited courses such as Ausswim, Swim Australia and from Active Training. Also at the school, ask if you can go in and watch the classes. That's one of the best things that you can actually do. See what you think of the classes, ask a lot of questions while you're in there. Also, making sure that the centre has a philosophy of what they're actually trying to teach the children. You want to make sure that they are covering deep water survival skills, water familiarisation, and the children are actually learning along the way. Also, you want the children to have parent involvement, especially when your children are very young. We say from 6 months of age is a good time to actually start children in swimming lessons. And the parents, it's a great bonding session that you can actually have the children, one-on-one skin contact with the children. And you want children never to be fearful of the water. So this is one of the best ways that you can get them enjoying the water and enjoying what they're doing, but also learning that respect that they need of the water, understanding that they can only go swimming with mum or dad or with an adult. Because when they get to a certain age, they will need to move into classes onto their own, and you want them to be feeling comfortable in what they're actually doing and knowing that they can trust the instructor that they're actually with. Also making sure that the classes are nice and fun. Children learn from fun activities. You don't want them being bored, and you want them doing lots of repetition, especially of the survival skills. That's one of the most important things of a young age, that you want the children, if they were to fall in a swimming pool, how to actually get themselves out, learning how to kick themselves to the surface, turning themselves around and getting to the back of the pool and learning how to get themselves out. So when you're actually attending classes, make sure that they're explaining those things to you. You know how to get your child to fall forward, turn themselves around and getting back to the edge of the pool. And making sure that the centre is friendly and welcoming. You don't want people that are grumpy around your children. It's going to make them feeling very unwelcome. Okay. At what age do you think children should start swimming lessons? 6 months is a great age to start them from. Children at this age don't have a fear of water because it hasn't developed into their brains at this stage, so it's when it's great for children to come. Deep water survival skills. This is one of the most important things that you can actually teach your children. From a very young age, most children that fall into a swimming pool are usually trying to retrieve something out of it. So we want to make sure that they've got their tools to be able to get themselves out of the pool. As we said earlier, unfortunately, no child is drown-proof, but hopefully you can teach them the skills that will give them a better chance of survival. So, you know, the simple things, especially for babies starting from 6 months of age, the water movement actually helps them with their crawling action and things like that. And that's the action you actually want them to learn to actually get themselves out of the pool.
The other great things about water babies classes and swimming lessons for young children is recent research has actually shown that it improves the cognitive and the physiological development of the child. There's a research that's just been recently conducted by a university in Queensland, and that showed that children who do swimming lessons from a very young age, they talk earlier, they count earlier, their numeracy is better, their milestones, they achieve milestones sooner than children who do not do swimming lessons. So that's a really interesting research. Okay, so let's move on to first aid. Now, obviously, this is something we hope not to have to use. The whole idea of this presentation is to avoid this, but we should always make sure that we know first aid if something goes wrong. So CPR is the thing that we need to know. You may have seen that advert on TV there where you see the lady trying to crack through and she can't get there. It's really, really important that we go along and learn. It only takes a few hours to learn CPR. The other really important thing, though, about first aid is to educate people. So making sure that the children or the other adults know that they can call for help. They've got to be able to use their voices and call for help. The other thing is making sure when helping someone else that they keep themselves safe. All right, so if someone is in danger in the pool or in any waterway, how many times do we hear about other people who jump in to try and help them and then someone else jumps in and they all end up drowning, and it's really, really unfortunate. It's so important to keep yourself safe. If someone is going to reach out, do you think it's better for them to be standing there holding something for them, or should they lay down and reach for them? Always laying down, so they've got to keep themselves stable. So that's a really important side of educating people about helping someone else. The other thing you could do is throw something to someone in the pool to help them float. All right, so just moving on to some easy backyard rules. So these are things that you can sort of install if you... Has anyone here got a pool? Does anyone have a pool at home? Okay, so it's, the other thing is in Australia, the legislation is 30 centimetres depth, so that the pool is supposed to be fenced. So it's actually not a very deep pool. So it's really important that we are really aware of these things. First and foremost is be consistent. Once again, I said this before, but it's really important to be consistent, especially with children and with your rules. Children are the best manipulators in the world, and they'll try whatever they can to try and get out to that pool and get in there. So be consistent on your rules. Make sure you have adequate and appropriate pool fencing. Obviously, it's law, but it's also the best thing that you can do. And also keep those fences clear from tools that children could use to get over the fence and into the waterways. So things like trees that might be close by, stools, toys, anything that they can climb on that a child could use as a toy to get themselves over a fence and into a pooled area. Remove the toys from within that pooled area as well, because that is just an incentive for the child to try and get in there and play with those toys. So take them out of sight, and then there's no incentive for the child to go in there either. Don't rely on floats. So if you think your child is going to be safe and you can just leave them bobbing around in the pool in a floaty ring or something like that, please don't do that. It can be very unsafe, particularly for little children whose heads are quite large for their body size. If they tip up, they cannot right themselves to get back up. All right, so they'll be stuck upside down. And the last thing is teach safe entries and exits, all right? And another thing about being consistent. If you don't want your child to be doing skids in from the side onto a boogie board or something like that and risk banging their head and so on, then make sure you stick by that rule. So teach them how to get into the pool safely, teach them how to get out of the pool safely. And that way you'll avoid head injuries as well. The other thing is avoid dizziness, and this is probably as your children get older, but it's really important not to let your children do whizzies and things like that. If they get a little bit disoriented, they can fall in, they can take in water then. All right, there's another little thing called shallow water blackout. You might have heard, or you might have done it yourself, where people try and stay underwater for as long as they can, hold their breath. A lot of children hyperventilate in the process of doing that, causes them to black out. All right, and there have been children in Perth who have passed away in this way. Communicate with other parents. Make sure if children coming to your house or your child is going to a house with a pool, that you know exactly the level and the ability of those other children, and then that you know what supervision is being provided for your child. All right? And if you're unsure whatsoever, go and attend. And the last one, again, we've said do not enter the pool area without an adult. Okay. Just a quick little picture here. We've got two boats. Both are being supervised. We've said supervision is important, but which one do you think is safe? This one or this one? Absolutely. And the reasons obviously is you need to be prepared before the children hit the water. So children need to have things like life vests on before they fall in the water. There's no point just having them stashed away in the boat and hope that they can get them on afterwards. So I don't know what this guy's doing here. He's not even looking at the kids, but I don't want to see the next picture on that one. Thanks. Okay.
Okay. Keeping things safe. Always lock away your water. I don't think many of us use nappy buckets anymore, but nappy buckets was one of the bigger things. Making sure you've always got a lid on a nappy bucket. Remembering those front loader washing machines, making sure there's a child lock on those. The dog bowls, making sure that we've got them put away. Always making sure your children are following the rules. Doesn't matter which part of body of water you're going to, that they always have set rules. And that competent supervision, making sure it's a sober adult at all times supervising your children. Avoid dangerous places, making sure that you are checking everything out before your children are actually going into the water. And the most important thing that we can tell you is make your children learn to swim. It is the safest way they can be in the water. Thank you for your time today. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. We're also over at stand G53, so if you need to ask us any more questions, please feel free to come and see us, and there is a handout on the chairs for you to take away with you. Thanks very much everyone.